So hi there, everybody, and welcome back to Season 5. Season 5, Darragh. We made it this far. How are you doing?
Hey, I'll tell you what, one of those shows called SVU and all those shows in America have been like the longest running shows, 20 seasons, and we're back, Season 5, baby!
It's like,
to be fair, you're right, Philip. I mean, if it wasn't for all that wealth you've amassed the last few years off the back of this podcast and the training you've had, I mean, come on. You bought your first $1 million home, you get your 2-car family, you probably got a few bob in the bank, you're living like a Republican, you're not voting like one. But you've seen the uprise all start since this pod started. Look at all those things like...
some of those, early days. Meanwhile, of course, according to Twitter, you're pocketing all this money from these players you're selling.
So, well, yeah, you sound like one of my fans, you asshole, straight off the bat. But listen, to the fans, welcome back.
Yeah.
As you know, to be fair, none of us earn any money from this. Even H and Rob, who do the work behind the scenes, it's like, pittance. They do it because they love the show. We do it for the fan base. We've grown year on year. We're always looking for a sponsor. We've turned a few down, Dildos Are Us and co. But, and if I'm not myself today, I'm a little bit tired of telling you because I've been on TalkSport all day, and I've had my fill of that. I think I've got like the skateboarding world after me from the Olympics. I've got the feminists after me. I've got the equestrian gang after me. Some of the comments, you know me, when I go on like live radio, I tend to get the ratings through the roof and go straight into the anti-woke crap. But anyway, so yeah, summer preview episode. We thought we'd give the fans what they wanted. Lots to talk about. Bradford, Peterborough, football in general. I think our next episode will probably be, before the first game of the season, potentially.
We're leading into that. And we can talk in a bit more detail about go through the leagues at that point.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, so we'll kind of cover where we are this summer. We'll cover Bradford. We'll cover the bits and pieces. So where do we start? Where do we start, Philip? Give me your hit list. Where do you want to start?
Let's talk about... let's talk about your summer. So,
sure.
And let's go with outgoings first of all. So, and Ronnie, first and foremost. We've talked about Ronnie Edwards for a couple of years. It feels like just waiting for the right deal, the right club, and he finally got his big move to Southampton.
Yeah, so without boring people, and again, Alan Swan, I nearly killed him recently with some of the stuff he was going on about with the Burrows speculation and whatever else. So I did send him a heavy email. Let's start with Ronnie. So with Ronnie, basically, I stopped him going last summer and I stopped him going in January.
Mm-hmm.
There were two of the worst moments. Last summer the deal wasn't good enough. January, the deal was there. The club that was trying to buy him, deadline day, we did effort. I didn't want him to go. So I said to him, look, I'm not going to stand in your way in the summer. I'm going to do my best to get you a good move. We knew Russell loved him, last summer. We knew that. But at the time, Southampton were sorting themselves out in the championship, their finances. So, I don't think they wanted to spend that kind of money on what they'd see as a lower league player, even though he's a young talent. So there was a couple of clubs in from, but his agent and him made it very clear the only club they were going to talk to was Southampton. Okay. He wanted to play in the Premier League. The other clubs in from World Championship and one in League One. The one in League One are big spenders, but he was never going to go there. With all due respect, when a Premier League comes in like that, I'm gutted more didn't come in, but they have this thing in the Premier League that is 2 inches too short, all that stuff. So we did a deal that was, the best deal for us, for him, and for Barnet. And the way we look at it is, I'm convinced Russell Martin will make him the Premier League player I know he can be.
Mm-hmm.
I'm convinced in 2 years' time, Southampton, because they do the business at a higher level, will sell him to a top 4 club probably for 50, 60, 70 million, the way the rates go for centre-backs. Convinced he's going to play for England. He's captained under 20s 5 times, played 20 times. He's definitely playing the under 21s, in the winter. And we've got a lot of add-ons in the deal. The amount up front, people were quoting different figures. It was good business for everyone involved. He's got his dream move, and I'm very, very thankful, for him, appreciative for the time he put in. We signed him for free at a time where his club wanted 800 grand that they got off another Premier League club back then. And we were in COVID around that period. We had he was never going to be a player in the first team straight away. So our way of dealing with it was, look, we haven't got the money, but we'll do a big sell on and we'll do a deal with you. And that worked for them, worked for us. And we're very, happy with it. So people always go, oh, you're giving too much away in a sell on. When you're paying nothing for a player who's 16, who's valued at 700-800 grand even at that age, and another club's about to pay that for their 21 team, it was a sweet deal for all involved. So happy for it.
Yeah, I had some Southampton fans in my network reach out, ask me what I knew about him. And, for Southampton fans, I was saying he reminds me very much of a younger Dean Richards. So Dean went to Southampton as well, out of City's youth team. And just look, that composure, the ability to run out a goal, and kind of hold the ball, control the game from the back. I think that Southampton are... He's
a progressive beast the way he plays. He's got all the attributes. He's become a better defender, and he'll surprise people. He's not as aerially bad as you think because he's 6'1". I see all the data all the time. I honestly think that Russell Martin will turn him into a top class Premier League player. Russell gave our podcast a shout out. He rang Baz,
nice,
because the deal was on and off a few times between negotiations with Southampton. He rang Baz. He said, "Tell the chairman." Really appreciate what he said on the podcast when I was getting a bit of flack because they weren't winning games. Tell the chairman, I listened and I really appreciated the words, and he was prophetic because we went on a really long unbeaten run. So that was quite nice. Russell was a former player of mine. It's amazing how football comes back around. I remember signing him as a 20-year-old from Wycombe, and I'm very proud of who he is. I'm proud of that. I want him to do well at Southampton, keep him in the Premier League, and most importantly, see Ronnie do well. My old sparring partner Rasmus wasn't part of the deal, which I'm surprised about. He never wanted to engage with me, so somebody else engaged in the negotiating. So I don't know if I've upset Rasmus after putting him on the map with that 𝗛𝗿𝗂 sale. He got his bonus for the Premier League promotion they got. But yeah, so it's a great club for him, and I'm excited to see what happens next.
Now, do you have any other outgoings on the horizon?
We do. So obviously, by the time this is aired, Harrison will have signed for Sheffield United, the worst kept secret all summer. Swanee and his sources, that he's had all the time about they're not willing to pay the fee, they're not willing to do this. Basically, Harrison's joining Sheffield United. We had 5 different clubs make an offer for him. There was 5 in the Champ, 1 in League One. A lot of insulting bids from some of those clubs. We're not paying that for a 22-year-old from League One. We're not paying that because he's got a year left. We're not paying that. And I was like, what would you pay for the youngest ever winner of the EFL Player of the Year? Like, with all due respect. So we got our figure. We always had a figure. And obviously there's that figure, and then the sell-ons, add-ons, all the rest of it. If Harrison, if they go on to get promoted, do really well, it could surpass the 𝗛𝗿𝗂 deal. So we're very happy with that. Thank you to Sheffield United. They were brilliant about it. We always knew that it would take some time. They had some business to do. Ignored all the headlines. People got the wrong end of the stick and TalkSport about me that I was pitching leads on them. At the time, I knew this was already done. So there was no me trying to bring leads into the table. There were other clubs who came in from big clubs in the Champ as well. But Sheffield United, for me, I always wanted them to go there because I thought that's the one who I think will get promoted again. And we've got 7 figures on a promotion. Retention, caps.
And his valuation as a Premier League player at that point too.
Absolutely. He's 22. He's got so much upside. So, again, in a year's time, we could end up having, Ronnie in the Premier League, Ivan in the Premier League, Sammy Schmoddix, who could be going to the Premier League. We're going to have Harrison in the Premier League. I mean, for a team that does awful recruitment, according to some of our fans, not mentioning Levi, and even Levi's favourite player, who he always quotes me on, Joel Randall, who I once said would be worth 20 million in one of my humorous, bits of banter in the Q&A. We've had clubs bid for. I'm not selling Joe.
Yeah.
I'm not selling Hector. I'm not selling 𝗛𝗏. We've had bids for all those players. I know our fans are like, we're losing everybody and we've lost the back 4. The same back 4 that was like, and not being despondent to any of those players, but we were like 14th in League One. So, we always knew this was going to happen. Josh would have signed with us if the German club hadn't come in. We made him the best offer in the UK. But you can't turn down a German club with 50,000 fans or whatever. So good luck to Josh Knight. But yeah, Joel, we've had a bid that surpasses what we paid for him, which is what I always said, if we ever looked at it. But I've left the manager to make the decision. I said to the manager, if we clear our cash flow decks, you can decide on those other players. And he doesn't want to lose them. Now, if he rings me and says, sell Joel, sell whoever, that's a different story. But I told him I want to keep our squad. People are worried about contracts. I don't care. I want to have a tilt this season, be a successful season, try and win promotion as we all try and do in what is already a great League One. So we've turned down many, many millions in bids for those players. I don't want Alan Swan making unsettling headlines because I'm trying to settle the squad down. So Swanee, if you're listening, please don't put headlines up, Hector, for millions. you know, Joel for millions, Poku for millions. I've explained to all what the headlines I want to be is that no more assets of our squad will be leaving unless the manager wants them to leave and the manager agrees that they leave. That's where we are. Our decks are cleared. Our cash flow hole for the season is filled. And, you know, we had a number going into the season that was in the many millions, and we're trying to do things sustainably and operate properly without building up more debt. And then these sell-ons that come in, whether it's Sammy, Ivan, whoever, that's going to reduce debt for people who were unhappy about a year ago. So we want to put ourselves in good shape. And I also want to say, whilst people worry about what we're losing, we're already, I think, the second biggest spenders in League One this year. We've spent over 1.6 million now on players. And we are still actively trying to do business in what is a very, very, very difficult market, you know, with outside forces now in League One overpaying players. It's a difficult market. So we're not done on the recruitment side. We brought in some very talented young players who we've seen in pre-season. We got a glimpse of some serious talent in there. We're going to add to it, you know what I mean, and whatever else. And any player that leaves, that will be the manager's decision, not the club's decision from a financial point of view. So we're in good shape for the 12 months ahead.
And we've talked a lot over the last couple of years about debt and how the confidence that you've had in knowing that you had the assets in the building to cover the level of debt, and that's kind of proving itself out now, right? As you're getting these.
We carry what 10 million in debt, more or less, the secured debt, which I actually think for League One clubs not a lot of money in football nowadays. So Ivan, Tony, and Sammy get sold, you could potentially wipe out half of that.
Yeah.
Then suddenly you're in the 5 million range. We're buying other assets. We're buying other players. People used to laugh when I said our squad was worth 30 to 40 million. You know, if you take Harrison and Ronnie, you know, they were on that chart. They've gone for more than what was in the chart. You then have all the add-ons in future. The reason we do business like we did, we sold Benji Arthur last year. He could be worth, he's doing brilliant at Brentford. We have a big sell-on. We sell to clubs who we think will sell again. Yeah. We have Harrison. We have Ronnie now. We have, again, you know, everyone goes, well, once Ivan and Sammy are done, who have you got next? Well, we have Ephron. I think Ephron will pull up trees at Coventry, potentially go up with them. And now we have H and Ronnie over the next 2, 3, 4 years. So that's just the way it works. That's the business we're in. But at the same time, we're still the biggest spenders outside of Birmingham. You can't include Birmingham in that. So, you know, we're the biggest spenders in League One. They're just blowing everyone out of the water. Fair play to them. But so, no, I'm excited. We brought in some, I mean, George Nevitt is 18. What a talent he's going to be, by the way. Our left back from Crewe, the best left back in League One and League Two statistically.
That's Rio Adebisi, is it?
Yeah, correct. Take Harrison out of it. He was high up there. They're going to take time to adjust. You know, Manny signed a new 3-year deal. Looks an absolute beast. He is if you were to build a perfect centre half, Manny would be it, attributes wise. Our fans dig into him. I still see fans making comments, and I'm like, we played last night at Boston. He was flawless. Certain fans who always dig him out, not a word, no credit. Like, give credit where it's due. We frightened Ricardo Santos out of our club playing the same game. Like, Manny Fernandez is so much upside. Him in the championship, beast. What Manny's got to learn at 22 is concentration. The only way he learns concentration and cut out mistakes is what? Playing games. So you know, we've had bids for Ricky all summer. And this will, you know, some of the fans again, and you've got the intelligent fans who see him for what he is, which is a massive asset to any football club because of his ability to press, his ability to chase, run down, his pace. You know, we had a bid from a Danish Super League club. We had a bid from 2 second division Spanish clubs. And we had a bid from a championship club who were about to sell, I think, one of their players for like 15 to 18 million. And turn them down. And again, that's down to the manager. If he wants him to go and a deal comes in, I'll go out and we'll get a replacement. And that's what we do. So lots to be excited about. I think our squad's got younger. Still some pieces.
Who knew that was possible?
Yeah. Still some pieces to add. Still a couple of players to go, including your old boy. Your boy's obviously offered 35% of his wages to come back on loan. I couldn't believe what I was reading when Barry sent me the text after I told you specifically what he was on and what we were asking for. So I was amazed a club the size of Bradford coming in with a bid like that. But that's football, I guess. You got to try. You know, it is what it is. But so it's been a really interesting summer. It's one of the hardest summers I've worked. I was up last night again. I've been up for the last 4 days working on things. Some of our fans are a little bit upset that we haven't got more defenders in the building, but we are working on deals. We've signed a Premier League central midfielder who's coming in. He's with the first team and he's playing games with them, I believe, abroad. So he comes, I think, the 2nd of August. he will be a great addition to the central midfield with Hector, Archie, Ryan, and this guy. And now Donay has turned out to be, could save me an absolute fortune. Donay O'Brien. Not going to hype him up too much because, again, I don't want to put too much pressure on young players. We had a great meeting in Spain at camp, and we all, in a manager meeting, said, manager was like, I'm going to try and play Donay at 6 and a pivot to 8. And he's been absolutely top drawer. His attitude, this kid would sleep in his car. Like, you got to bear in mind, this kid's on 21 wages, anywhere from 250 to 400 quid a week. So I told the boy, he keeps impressing, keeps doing what he's doing. Don't be one of them gets a new contract and suddenly drops off like we've seen with other under 21s. Donay could be an absolute bargain of the summer because he looks sensational playing the central midfield. He wants the football. He's comfortable on the football. He's a positive passer. In other words, when he gets on the ball, it's not that way. It's always that way. He's 20. He came from Spurs Academy. He played central midfield for Spurs as a kid. We feel like we could have spent 500-600 grand getting that type of player in the building. Mm-hmm. So we're very excited about him. So, and then you got obviously some of the youngsters like JD and Harley. Harley's come back flying. JD needs to zone in now and get back to what he was like before he got injured and when he was breaking into the team. So to be fair to him, he was brilliant last night against Boston. That was his best performance pre-season, and we need to see more from him. So yeah, very enthusiastic, unlike some of our fans. You mentioned one before. I think you mentioned Levi, when you the Chris,
yeah, it's funny.
Chris Meister. He was back moaning again.
I was scrolling through the timeline while we were just waiting to kick off here, and I haven't looked at the timeline in a little while. And I have to be surprised. I have to say, I was a little surprised by the negativity again. Because I think I'm looking at it in the context of where Bradford are versus the context of where you are. And so I know that, other people aren't looking at that with that context. They just care about their own club.
So I'm superstitious. Last year, this time, we played Peterborough Sports, and they beat us 1-0. And everybody was losing their collective shit that we were going to have the worst season in history. And I remember the time saying, 17, 18 years I've done pre-season. And Barry Fry says to me every pre-season, Chairman, pay fucking no attention to pre-season. Excuse my language, by the way. I'm going to try and clean up the F words this year. So let me tell you about last night. We played Boston away. Off the back of playing West Brom on Saturday at St. George's, West Brom full-strength team. We were magnificent against West Brom. We mixed and matched our squad, and we were magnificent. We lost the game 2-1. We should have won the game. All right, that was against a strong West Brom side who played more games than us beforehand. So let's go to last night. And by the way, big thank you to West Brom and their management staff for giving us that game. So last night we played Boston. Let me tell you, Barry rang me and said, best setup you've seen for a non-league club. Beautiful stadium, beautiful food, great pitch, the whole shebang. We put out an 11 in the first half. We played 2 60-minute games. The back line was young Nick in goal, young Harley at left back. We played a winger at right back in Adji Boy. We played a 21 player in Ollie Rose, who's done great pre-season, but he's 21s. And then we had Critchlow. And it was kamikaze Keystone Cop defending.
Yeah.
All right. And with all due respect to a lot of those lads, one's playing out of position. 2 are young lads who are coming through the 21s. They're not in the first 11 yet, but they have a chance. I remember when H played in the 21s 3-4 years ago, had a disastrous game. This happens when you're young. Critchlow, that's down to him and the manager, but he's obviously got to up his game. Yeah. That's quite natural for him, that he's got to be better, because I know he's better than that. He's better than that. And there is a player in there with Critch. So he just needs to start playing like the player we know and think he can be. If he's still here, if he moves on, he's got to do better. But of course, they were all disappointed in themselves. We were 3-1 up. I think we were 4-1 up. It ended up 4-4. Attacking wise, we look like Brazil from the 70s and the 60s. And defensive wise, we look like, well, I don't even want to describe what we look like. But, there were a lot of positives from that first, 60 minutes. Some great goals. Con Clark scored a couple. Ricky got on the score sheet. So we looked dangerous. We then brought out, what you call a more established back line. Manny, George Nevitt, Rio, who's just back from an injury. And obviously JD at right back. It was JD's best game. We won the second 60 minutes 2-0. We played a young 18-year-old number 9 called Kamara that we took off, I think, Welling in non-league. He plays for our 21s. Because Malik's out with an ankle issue. He's back Saturday. And we had to play him because Ricky had done a 60 minutes. And he took both his goals. Like, I'm telling you, boys have got a chance. Again, it's down to hard work. He's another little gem. We also played a trialist in central midfield in that second half game. Again, he's a 21s trialist. He's not for the first team. He's been playing with the 21s to sign for the 21s. We have two different wage bills. 21s, first team.
Yeah.
So only because Hector was missing. Hector's back on Saturday as well. So it was mix and match. It was a great workout. Very thankful to Boston. The highlights were it was 6-4, kamikaze, Peterborough scorelines. And then you've just said there, Levi and other people are losing their collective shit over the back line. What I don't see from the same people is talking about the back line who played the second 60 minutes. Because if you watched it, why can't you give credit to the players who played well when you're going to give criticism to the players who didn't play well? Mm-hmm. Why have you got to make comments like, we're fucked if this is our back line against Huddersfield? Why have you got to panic when the season's 3 weeks away and the window doesn't close for 6 weeks? Like, sometimes there has to be context to it, right, Phil?
Yeah, and, I think you know where the gaps are. Of course. So I think you're not blind to where the problems are or where you need to continue to look at recruiting for.
Yeah, correct. We have to bring in 2 centre-backs and a right-back. We've got 2 great first-team centre-backs. If Critch moves on, we need 2 more. We need a right-back to go in and work with JD. We are actively working on them. Let me explain to you. The market this summer is very difficult. I'm not saying deals aren't in the pipeline, because they are. We will address and fill all positions. This isn't a financial thing. This is, we've identified players. The clubs won't sell them. Or the clubs won't, if they're bigger clubs up high, won't sell them. They all want a loan, because they don't want to get caught with a cold with a mighty Peterborough taking a player and they go for millions 2 years later. The ones we were in for, we had one signed, pretty much done. And at the last minute, obviously our Welsh friends came in and swooped in and offered them, I think it was $3,000 more a week than we had already agreed with the player. So, and by the way, fair play to them. That's their prerogative to do that. We've done that over the years to other clubs. The player chose them. No problem. I've got no issue with that. So you go back to the drawing board, option B, C, and D. Because a lot of clubs that are higher up have had the Euros, I've had like the America's Cup or whatever it's called now, all those things going on.
Yeah, Cup America.
A lot of those big clubs now, their senior players don't report back till later. So they're bringing their younger players with them. So deals aren't as easy. So, it's going to take time. People have to calm down. Rome wasn't built in a day, although I always said if I was involved, it might have been. And we recruit well. I don't know why our fans are like flapping, and again, I'll say it, our defense was probably the worst part of our team last year. Mm-hmm. So, we were bottom of League One for set piece goals. We now have a colossus in Manny. We now have a player that we believe at 18. We're not trying to compare him to Ronnie, but he progressively passes. He's taller. He's still growing. He has all the attributes. We have a left back where he might not have 20 assists like H, but he's defensively strong. He'll grow into the position. We are going to strengthen in those areas. Other than that, we're good to go. We're good in other areas.
And you re-signed Jed Steer as well, didn't you?
We did, yeah. Oh, Jedley. I call him Ned Flanders. I had a bit of fun with him in the Spanish trip when I did the bonus meeting with the committee. He was now part of that committee, being the elder statesman. He thought he upset me because the next day he was like, saying to Liz, I've upset the chairman. And I was like, I never get upset with people. Even when you like have little sparring sessions over bonuses and stuff, it was quite fun. He's a brilliant guy, great character. Very thankful for Stella and David Manassi helping get the deal done. They're big agents, but they've had Jed on their books for years. And the manager wanted him for 2 years, and I got it done for 2 years. So we also got a new goalie coach, Paul Jarrett. I think he's going to be superb for our young goalkeepers and also for Jed. So, and also our set pieces, which was a weakness of ours last year.
So one of the questions that you talked about trialists in the preseason game last night. Yeah. So something that's interesting to me, it's kind of off topic, but I see, you see it at this time of year, obviously, when people put out the team sheets, when they're talking about in the friendlies, and you just see trialists. So, like, there's no reference to who these trialists actually are. Is that, an EFL mandate that you can't name them in your team?
No, you do. Want people to know. You do it because you don't want people to steal them. So, we rarely in the first team fixtures pre-season have trialists because we've got a big squad. The 21s games will have loads of trialists, because what happens is our 21 squad is decimated this year because you've had both fullbacks move into the first team. You've had Ipemi now go out on loan. You've had Donay move into the first team. You've had Ollie Rose, who's a centre back for them, training with the first team abroad. So they're kind of decimated from a player perspective. A lot of players were released at the end of last year, which happened in 21s. Mm-hmm. So now with Dan and the team and Samson Co., I have to go about now recruiting some talent for them and working with them. And what they do, they bring in about 10 to 15 released Premier League youngsters who didn't get contracts in the Premier League and have basically gone into the system. We bring those players in on extensive trials. We even have a player from America on trial. So 99% of them don't get contracts. The boy who played last night, he's in line potentially to get a deal for the 21s. If he progresses from the 21s, he might go into our first team next year. So he's 18, 19. So, you know, you're bringing gems in there, you know. So we have work to do in the 21s because they're all panicking. But I also know this year, a big thing we didn't do last year, a lot of our first team, when our 11 played on a Saturday and you had 11 subs or whatever who didn't get involved, a lot of them didn't play in the 21s game, so they didn't have enough games. And data shows us that some of those young players needed to play more. Ryan de Havilland didn't play enough 21 games. You know, people like that. So the managers agreed a good 6 or 7 of our squad who don't play, you know, Saturday or a Tuesday or whatever, if there's a 21s game, they will pivot into the 21 team and squad. So we're not gonna have 11 new 21 players signed. We might get 5 or 6 in, and then we'll have the 5 or 6 in the first team pivot in. A couple from our 18s will step up, like Kamara, who scored twice last night. You know, again, he's at that age, 18. Yeah, it's good. You know, that's the way we want to do it.
And so for a de Havilland, as an example, it's not necessarily, you know, you're going back into an under 21 squad. It's game time. So that you're not just showing up in the EFL trophy and, you know, struggling because you haven't played for a long time, and then everyone looking at you thinking that, you know, that's your level of
Ryan's a brilliant trainer. He's one of the best in training. What Ryan needs to do is he needs to take it into games now, and he has to make goals, he has to score goals, he has to do the things he needs to do. He's young. Don't write him off too quick, Posh fans, because he's very young. And what Ryan lacked at the end of last season was, I think he played 1 game in like 2 months before he got thrown in against Portsmouth because Hector was suspended. And to be fair to Ryan, he wasn't bad. But the problem with Ryan is that training can do so much, playing games and the competitive nature give you a lot more. And that's what Ryan was probably missing. And we analysed it and looked at it. And you people like Ryan and you other people in there, they have to play. So, for example, if James Donnelly doesn't play, Hardy Mills doesn't play, and they're on the bench, and Ryan doesn't play, Donay doesn't play, it could be 9, 10, 2 weeks before they play a game. If there's 21, the players can't see it as a demotion. They have to see it as game time. If I'm a striker, I want to score goals. I want that competitive edge. So, you know, whether it's a first team striker, they have to go and play. They have to get minutes because we have a young squad. It's not like saying to a 28-year-old, look, drop down and go travel down to the middle of nowhere and play a game for the 21s. And it's like, oh, this is a punishment. No, that is helping the players progress and get better. So that's what we're all about.
Yeah, confidence, I imagine, as well, from 100%. Playing, you know, at that level.
Well, you go in the 21s and score a hat-trick on a Tuesday, you're ready for the team on Saturday. Joe Taylor was the leading goal scorer in the 21s, you know, and now obviously he's flying for Luton, and you know, potentially you could end up playing in the Championship. So you got a great move. So it's not always a negative playing in the 21s. So, but the 21s are great. We bought Kwame and we put him in the 21s for 5 months. You know, now he's the most coveted winger outside the Premier League. That's 2.5 years later. Players have to understand there's a progress, there's a stage here of doing things right. So, yeah, it was good. So that's us pre-season. We're excited. We've got some more business to do. We've got some great attacking elements to the team. We're nowhere done. We feel like we can strengthen, and we will. But they've got to be the right players. They've got to fall in line with the way we do business. You know, I might have to push up or doing a bit more shopping overseas, you know, in the coming windows, because, you know, some of those clubs I mentioned are just like, they're blowing teams away, you know, doing what we do with wages and stuff. And, you know, when that happens, instead of moan and bitch like a child, you basically have to pivot and find alternatives. So we are the best in the business at recruiting. So we might have to take our show on the road.
So, you know, Birmingham coming in and spending the money that they're spending in League One right now. Can they do that in the constraints of financial fair play? How does that kind of work?
I don't know if there's a rule that when you come down from the champ, you get a year away from the 60% rule. Okay. So usually you can only spend 60% of what you bring in. So for a team like Wrexham, who turn over 24, 25 million a year because of their documentaries, they could easily spend 12, 14 million on wages, transfers, whatever every year. Birmingham are a massive club. So again, I don't know what their figures are. So if they're turning over 30 million, they could spend theoretically 15 to 17 million a year on wages, transfers, whatever. People are moaning and bitching about what they're doing in the market, but we knew that. I mean, Barry speaks to them all the time. They came on for 4 of our players this summer. You know, when it was Barry's favorite thing was Craig ringing him every other day and saying no. And you know, they're a massive football club. They're having a right go. They've got a new young manager. They're rebuilding. I have no problem with that. People are moaning that they might spend 6-7 million on Stansfield in League One. That's football. Like, that's the beauty of the game. You know, I've been in this league with Leeds, Leicester, Southampton, Brighton, some of the biggest clubs, and it's Birmingham's turn. And if they go and win the league by Christmas and get it done, good for them.
Yeah,
good for them. No problem with that.
It's high stakes, isn't it? Because I mean, you imagine it's all going to be amortized, so it's not like they're spending 6 million. I mean, it's still a big number, but let's say it's $1.5 million towards our FFP rather than 6 million. So it's got to work.
Yeah, it will work. It will work.
Kind of pushing it down, the investment down the line to be able to.
Yeah, of course, and they're investing in their future. They've cleared the decks. They got rid of probably a lot of players on heavy wages. They've got a chance basically to reset in League One. I'm a fan of what they're doing. I have no problem with it. If we were a club that size, we'd do the same. They're shopping in Germany. You know, they're buying players here and there. Good for them, you know, at the end of the day, you know, and I have no problem with that. It's a massive football club. They're probably going to be like an Ipswich, where they're probably not maybe back to back, but I would envisage they go up. They'll go up again within 4 years. So you heard it here first. Birmingham Premier League within 48 months from now.
You know, it's the whole momentum that you talk about all the time, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
For a big club.
Massive club.
Big clubs and momentum.
Yeah, and hats off to their owner. They're spending on their stadium, the infrastructure. They've got good people there. Again, I have no issue with it at all. Derby went down a different route last year because I think they were constrained with what happened with the debts and whatever. And Paul Warner had to put together an older team, an older squad, and lots of free transfers and loan signings. But guess what? They're in the Championship. Now they can build from there. You know, you can easily criticize everyone for the way they do business or recruit. You know, Burton have gone out and probably, you know, they've probably given Steve Evans, you know, angina, you know, because they're going to beat him in the amount of players they've signed.
It's like a signing a day,
right?
You know,
no problem with that. They've got new owners. They're excited. They're enthusiastic. They're going in. They're buying foreign players. They're buying local players. Again, great. You know, listen, it's good for the league. You know, League One's one of the best leagues now, and you know, the Championship was the 5th biggest league in the world. You know, every year. I mean, League One can't be far behind being in the top 20. So, you know, the size of the clubs in our league, you know, we're talking about Birmingham, we're talking about Wrexham. You know, we're not talking about some of the other big clubs already in our league. So, you know, Bolton, massive club in our league. So, you know, it's exciting. Huddersfield were in the Premier League 4 years ago. So it is what it is. But, you know, you can't be apprehensive about that. You know, you have to say, well, you know, we got out of this league and won promotion before. It's always had some big dogs in that league when we've done it. You know, last time I think we beat Sunderland, you know, teams like that. So there's no reason we can't go again.
It strengthens the product, you know, of, like the product of League One. You think about, you know, the deal that the EFL did with CBS, for example, to expand.
What are the first games on CBS, Phil? Did you see the first fixtures they're showing?
I haven't seen the fixtures, no.
Guess who's first on TV?
Wrexham.
Correct. You know,
what a hazard of a guess that was.
And you know what? It would be easy to fucking dislike, you know, Ryan and his partner. Yeah, well, the two Ryans now, is it? Yeah.
Ryan and Rob.
Sorry, Ryan and Rob. It would be easy to dislike both of them and whatever else, but you can't. They're likable guys. So, you know, my kids are big fans of Ryan Reynolds. My missus likes Blake Lively. You know, the other fella seems to be really down-to-earth guy. Yeah. You know, again, it's not jealousy, it's envy. It's envy they can do TV deals for 20 million a year. I'd happily sell my soul for that. So,
I mean, if you had the net, you know, they're not getting the club in debt through what they're doing. No. From a business, it's like a business case study of leveraging, as a lot of these Hollywood stars do, not necessarily in football, but in you know, their vodka businesses or whatever, is leveraging the star that they have.
It's genius.
To bring in money.
It's genius.
To bring in money and then do the marketing associated
with it. They know when they redevelop that stadium, they're probably going to be getting 20,000 every week. You know, even more in the champ. So you know, it's genius. The market for football clubs going through the roof, by the way. Like more and more Americans. You have no idea the amount of people who've approached me the last like 6 months since what we did last year with our young squad and whatever else. The multiples, like the price of multiples and everything else, it's going through the roof. The Wrexham factor has driven a lot of Americans wanting to get invest in football. And I'm talking about private investment, equity, you know, big fund players, you know, people who own other sports franchises. They all want a bit of the action because our product is taking off. You know, bigger deals are going to happen. Even a club like Peterborough is attractive to these Americans who are an hour from London. You know, we have an asset base of players. You know, you've seen the people who bought Burton had to go in and sign 20 players. if somebody bought Peterborough tomorrow, they'd only have to sign 2 players by the end of the window, and they've got the youngest squad in the league already asset-based. So, you know, there are all those things going on. It's fascinating to see. You have to thank Ryan and Rob for that, because obviously they've driven a lot of that. So I joke about CBS Paramount Plus showing Wrexham and Huddersfield as their first 2 games. They're both American owners that own those clubs, if you count American and Canadian at Wrexham. But, you know, of course they're going to put them on because they want to engage the audiences. So I would agree, if I was picking those games, I'd be like, you got to do Wrexham, you got to do Huddersfield as a Tom Brady. Birmingham, it was a Tom Brady. Huddersfield was the American owner. So you have to do that.
Well, that's the catch, isn't it? And then you hope that people stay for the rest, like get them in, and then sell them the product. And people
exactly
stick
right.
around.
My only advice would be to Rob and Ryan is if I was to give them advice, I'd stop watching the documentary, because it was like, it was the women's football, it was all other facets. It was just like, I like the first team, the stuff that interests me the most. I would encourage them to involve other clubs, owners, staff in some of the show. You know, like share some of that. I'm not saying like put me on their fucking show or whatever else.
There's other there's other storylines and characters that they can bring to expand it. Right.
For example, they had a big row at Andy Holt at Accrington Stanley. It would have been a great opportunity if they got Andy on that show last year, you know, and to give his side of the story about Ticketgate, where they kind of like, you know, Andy charged this, then they came out and said, well, we're going to only charge this. That would have been a wonderful idea to go, you know what, let's get Andy on the show with his cap on, you know, talking, you know, as the Accrington owner, you know, and other clubs. It would be fascinating viewing, you know. So, but yeah, I haven't watched it now for a season and a half or whatever else, you know. So it's going to be interesting to see how it all unfolds.
Yeah. Now, meanwhile, you're causing stirs on TalkSport, I think, this week about wanting to buy American clubs, or an American club, and the structure here, as we talked about on the pod, is MLS basically closed shop, and then there's USL below it, which is United Soccer League or something like that.
Yeah. So I've met some interesting people that I would now call friends, who are very much, they're massive Posh fanatics now. Some of them came to Wembley for the cup win. And before I go and start talking, it's not about, you know, ownership or whatever else. They're just great guys with great families who love the whole sports bug. And I'm meeting them our way in Florida in August. I'm going back, you know, after the Huddersfield game on a Sunday to move Callum into Auburn University, where he attends obviously the middle of August. Then I go to Vero Beach to meet my new pals, you know, who are great guys. And I'm going to talk to them about a lot of things, including, you know, American-based ownership of USL. You know, I want to partner up with a few people and do some interesting things in the game. I'm in football forever. You know, this is my passion. This is where I put all my energy. I'm okay. I'm pretty good at what I do, job-wise. I think I could do this at other clubs. I think I could do it well, not just at Posh. So like-minded people. Anyone listening who thinks they would fit into that equation, I don't care if you're American, I don't care if you're English, I don't care if you're local, foreign. You know, I'm looking to partner up with some good people, and I think I've met some, and I think together we could do some exciting stuff, including potentially a USL club that might lead down the line to the MLS.
Now, what is the potential of a USL club? Is it building a successful USL franchise that then, when new spots become available in the MLS, they're considered for a new franchise spot, or
no,
you know, promotion and relegation at some point in the future?
The price of the franchise is a closed shop. It's ridiculous. It's like 200 million, 300 million, whatever it is. And I'm sorry I will misquote any information that's not correct. But the idea would be take a club in the USL, you know, that's not done great, put it on the map, make some noise, like the true Irishman I am. I've done on TalkSport, banging the drum about how I think the MLS needs the pyramid.
Yeah,
break the roof off of that, you know, become famous and synonymous in America with recruitment, recruiting talent and gems, sell them to the MLS, sell them to English clubs, vice versa. Bring in some English players to the USL that USL clubs wouldn't normally do, to give more of an audience in the UK, get UK people more involved and engaged, and then fight at a higher level, a political level, to open up that pyramid and sell it to them that, I know you're all billionaires. I know you all own your clubs. I know you like the safety of owning your club in the MLS, where it's boring every year with your playoffs and what you do. But here's what could happen if you actually open your mind, because an open mind is like a parachute. If it's not open, it won't work. So that's my idea. And also at the same time, I think the USL clubs' valuations are going through the roof too. If you get the right one in the right location and build a fan base up, you could even flip that in 5, 6, 7 years' time for good profit. So anyone interested in being a part of that party, happy to have them on board.
I think that you talked about the fact there's a lot of money in football over here, and having spoken to someone who's spent a ton of money on soccer camps this summer for our youngest.
That's my next one. How much did you spend? How much did you spend in camps?
So we did a Real Madrid branded camp, which was about $550 for a week. I'm sorry.
A week.
He's in one with Orlando City this week, which was probably $300 for the week.
Okay.
And then he does one throughout the season that also has a summer camp. There was something like $250 a week.
So you're probably going to spend, I don't know, $6,000, $7,000 for the summer.
Well, so the camps and then the regular season. So the regular season, we pay $250 a month for him to be part of, an academy.
All the stuff you got to buy. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So now
and he's 8 years old.
And I've got to get the new kits, by the way. So absolutely. So here's the thing. So now imagine, forget about your Orlando City. Forget about local camps. Now imagine one of the top 45 clubs in the football world, Premier League, Football League, Peterborough. If you took last year our finishing position, I think we were 49th in the whole pyramid. I've now got a professional academy in Orlando where your kid can do summer camps. They can play all year long. They're going to have coaches that are employed by Peterborough United.
Yeah.
Our management team will send a coach over to do one session of a week every year. Potential youth contracts could be offered for these players when they turn age to go over and get a contract with a professional football club. Do you think that would be popular in Orlando?
Absolutely. I mean, football is becoming, because of, there's a lot of different immigrant groups. For example, here in Central Florida, there's a lot of demand.
But do they want to play in the MLS or in England?
Oh, England. It's funny. So, my son, bless him, it talks about the fact that he's deciding whether he's going to move to Liverpool or Madrid. When he plays football.
I love it.
So, I think that there's definitely the vision of these kids is absolutely not to play in MLS, it's to go and play in Europe.
And the parents are all obsessed with English football. So I'm going to raise over $1 million and I'm going to open up an official affiliated Peterborough United Academy in America. I'm going to start in Orlando and then expand it out. Because I honestly think it will make a fortune. It will also mine talent, which is not a bad thing. And it will really open up that world that we're not in already. Because you've got in Orlando the CR7 Academy, you've got Real Madrid Academy, you've got this academy, you've got Orlando, your favorite local club. I don't like the names, I already bought it. You've got all of them, but what you don't have is an English line. And me obviously owning Peterborough United, it will create some little bit of local headlines, and we're going to get in proper coaches. So that's my next big business idea.
And I think also having some kind of scholarship around, because the one thing for me is that the way that structurally football is here, now having exposure to it, it's very much a middle upper class sport, because, the kids who are the ones playing on the streets 24/7 don't have the opportunity to progress.
Correct. Correct. Imagine how much kit we'd sell. Now let me do it another way. We'll have an all year round academy. Now imagine we hold a summer tournament, which would be hot in Orlando. Let's imagine we hold a 7-day tournament because we're going to have to build a place in Orlando to do it, proper pitches, the whole shebang. Yeah. Now imagine a 7-day tournament for teams from all over America to put in their players, or parents to put in their kids for 7 days, where you'll have Peterborough United affiliated coaches coming over. At the end of the camp, you will get a scholarship in our academy in England. Obviously, as long as everything's agreed on the, work permits and whatever else. Can you imagine how popular that would be no matter the price?
Yeah.
Off the charts. So that's just something. So if you want to invest, there you go. So I am looking for investors. I'm going to put in a lot of money, but it's probably going to cost over $1 million to get the right place, do the pitches. But I think it's something exciting. It could be a good revenue earner for the football club, and it could be a good miner of talent. So just a few ideas. I'll stop rabbiting on. What's next? Let's talk Bradford before the podcast is over.
Yeah, I mean, I can't. We did our business so long ago, I can't even remember what it was. Partly, it's been an interesting pre-season where it was.
What have you brought in?
So we have brought in Anthony Sasovich, from Stockport most recently, wasn't he? Tyreek Wright has come back, who was with us on loan for a while, then went to Plymouth.
Yeah.
got promoted to the Championship. Obviously, he's not a Championship player. So he's come back down. We signed Callum Johnson, who I think was Mansfield.
Yep.
But I think he's had a lot of time on the sidelines. And then we have signed Aidan Baldwin and Neil Byrne from Stockport. Are they both from Stockport? Can't remember.
Was Adam Baldwin off from Notts County?
Baldwin was Notts County. You're right. So Baldwin was Notts County because we basically did a swap with Matty Platt went there.
Yeah,
and Baldwin came to us.
Yeah.
So you rate him then because Notts County obviously struggled with their defence last year, and so
they did.
It's easy to look at that.
Yeah, under the previous manager, he was very good. He was a big part of what I got promoted. So I don't know. I mean, what are you missing? What do you still feel is missing?
I think that we're good up front. We've got plenty of options up front in attacking positions. I would still say the middle, centre mid, and probably left wing back, maybe another centre half. So a centre half, left wing back, centre mid would be to me the most, the biggest holes.
Okay.
And I think that we did all this business early on, and there was talk about increased budgets and things like that, and not doubting that that's still the fact, but there's still some high earners there, and so I think we're waiting to move people on before we're able to to go to your comment earlier about Critch. I think that we're having to wait until we move some people on before we can spend some of the money that we might want to spend on filling those gaps.
Do you feel? I look at that league and I think bar MK Dons, there's no big favourites for that league. Do you feel with what you've got in the building right now that you're going to compete in the top 7?
If assuming we can fill a couple of those gaps, I think so. I think it's I think that what it's going to come down to is fitness of the people that we've got in the building. We've really struggled with that for a couple of years.
Keeping them available.
Yeah. Now I know that that's been a really big thing. Graham Alexander believed that when he came in, the team was completely unfit. Not kind of fit for purpose, if you will. And so there's been a ton of effort that's gone into that. We've just brought in a new head of sports science. We've just brought in a new physio. They've been in Austria, all week on a pretty high intensive fitness program. So there's been a lot of work that's gone into there. If you can keep them fit, and then there's no reason why we shouldn't be top 7. But, we keep going back to this signing relatively aging players who have spotty injury records. And, we've talked about that a lot on the pod, and sometimes it makes you throw your hands up and think, you're doing the same things again, expecting different results.
Yeah, that is surprising. So that's going to be a big tester for obviously Graham Alexander this year. That can he take those players he's brought in, some of them with those patchy injury records, and make sure they're available. So have they invested in the sports science side this off season?
They have. That's some of the investments that Ryan was looking for towards the end of last season. So we have put some money there. We brought somebody in who's new head of sports science.
Good.
Because that was identified, I think, by Graham as being a big gap, as much as an important a gap as new players.
And do you have is there any Levi Crisps in your fan group at the moment, like moaning about preseason results? How's it going, preseason wise?
There's probably about 10,000 of them.
Oh, really?
What did we do? We lost against a couple of non-league teams. I can't even remember who they were now. Charlie. We lost to Charlie. The world's going to end.
Right.
And then we either lost or drew another, I think, non-league club that, again, can't remember. Because I looked at it like you. I looked at it and thought, I'm whatever.
You're mixing and matching. We play Stamford on Friday night. We have Colchester, which was meant to be at their stadium on Saturday. They've dropped it on us yesterday. Their pitch isn't ready. So I'm sure a few of our fans are raging over that. Not our fault. So we're now obviously playing behind closed doors at our training ground. So that was a real shame. So I was looking forward to going to the Colchester one. We got Barnet at the training ground on Tuesday. And then we have our first home game at the pitch next Saturday against Notts County. We'll play 2 90-minute games. So you get all 22 players get their full 90.
Right.
Our pitch at the training ground, we spent a lot of money on our pitches this summer. So the manager's been really happy about that. Everyone's moaning about, players and stuff, but we've made a lot of infrastructural changes. We put a lot of money into the pitches. We've done something with our stadium pitch, and that will have to be at the end of this season. We're going to have to probably spend, we got one more year on that, but we've put money into it. We're then going to have to probably spend circa 600-700 grand on a completely different type of pitch at the end of the season, potentially. But the new grounds people we've had working since just before Christmas have been phenomenal so far. They've done a great job. So that's really important to the manager. We're making a lot of modifications at the training ground. All those little things you want to improve on. Investing in the staff. We brought in, obviously, the goalie coach, medical team. We've got them with some new toys and gadgets. And, sometimes that means more to everyone than a player, and securing people. Like we nearly lost our physio, and securing him was more important than an extra player in the squad.
I would also, to jump in, I don't think fans typically realize the cost of those things as well.
No, it's not
seen. It's not seen in a new player on the field.
No,
you don't realize that these cost 6 figures plus.
Oh yeah, I mean, you're talking about with things with the pitches and everything else. The training ground, $500,000 already. We're about to sink another $500,000 in the megastore, which will finally, hopefully, start. Touch wood. That'll be, it probably won't be before Christmas, but I'm going to set the deadline to get it out before Christmas. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, we're infrastructure wise, we are making those investments. So when people always go, "You're taking money, you're doing whatever," I'm always like laughing at that and going, "Yeah, okay." We're a League One club that compete every year, play superb football. Taking it to Wembley, trying to win promotion, and we lose £5 million a year. Like, what do you want? And by the way, we haven't put our prices up on tickets, season tickets, for nearly 3 years. Like, cut me some slack. So, we're doing our best.
We put a new pitch down. We've got Sunderland at home as our home, kind of friendly on that. We're also hosting Sunderland against Marseille friendly.
Fantastic.
Because Stadium of Light wasn't ready in time. So, but then, of course, the club get lots of abuse about, well, the pitch was awful last year and we're playing additional games now, and now we're going to be hosting Mason Greenwood and blah, 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 blah.
Oh, God almighty. God, the outrage mob. The outrage mob. I batted them off TalkSport today. Like, you know what I mean? Like the outrage.
There's always something.
Honest to God, it's just like, listen, it always is something. It gives us something to talk about. We've got competition now, by the way. We've got 2 new podcasts popped up. So we've got, obviously, the club's doing a podcast. I think Phil's launching that with the manager as the first guest. And I believe 7 or 8 fans. I don't know how an 8-man podcast works, but they've now launched some Posh podcasts as well, John 𝗛𝗿𝗂 and some of his pals. So there's plenty of Posh related podcasts out there. So, we mightn't be around much longer with the popularity of all these other podcasts. So, we might have to hang up our boots after season 5. It could be a Netflix style cancellation coming.
Yeah, hand it down to me, with no notice whatsoever. Out of work. Out of work podcast host.
Exactly, you know what I mean? So it is what it is. But look,
it seems like you're okay with TalkSport though.
Yeah. Listen, I'm filling in that.
Getting more and more popular.
To be fair, they're desperate to give me a show on a Saturday and Sunday, and I just don't have the time with another kid, about to go through the college cycle, after Callum goes to college. So a lot going on, at home. And, but maybe in the future. Simon Jordan rang me the other day. He was telling me about his media career and the money. And I was like, maybe. At some stage I've got to be selfish and go, what about me? Making money because my time is in sports is a lot. But look, let's put it this way. Let's hope the Posh Bradford win double, promotion, EFL trophy final against each other. What a dream season that would be. That's what we want, right? And obviously on our next episode, we'll preview the leagues and we'll pick our own winners in the leagues without mentioning our clubs. Yeah.
Sounds like a plan. So that will be a couple of weeks because we kick off on 12th of August this year or something like that. It's a little bit later this year.
So the week leading up, we'll do it then. The next podcast, and obviously give it the usual for anyone who wants to send emails in, information. Get it at hardtruthfootball.com. What's the email address?
contacts@hardtruthfootball.com, or you can just reach out on social media and we capture those as well.
There you go. Thanks for listening, fans. We'll see you soon. Summer preview episode over. Take care, guys. Bye.
Bye.